Welcome to the Geek podcast, where good games come from Japan. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
They pretty much do, yeah.
Today we're talking about JRPGs again, because, well, partially because it's been a while, but mostly because BJ kind of had like a JRPG Revelation in the last week, and that's mostly what I want to talk about. So why don't you tell us what happened in the last week, and we'll start there.
Okay, so last week we were talking about Ni no Kuni 2 on the podcast. It was part of something like I might be trying it soon, and I decided the next morning to download it on Steam to try to do the 2-hour return to see, if it's worth picking up. Well, it was fantastic. Like, it's really, really, really good, and I see exactly why Austin was spending so much time in it. And before I knew it, I was 118 minutes in on the Steam version of it, and it hadn't crashed, it hadn't done anything like Overwatch had been doing on my computer, so I kept it, and I loved it, and I realized that I got so invested in it that I realized that all of the games that I've really liked and stuck with over the last few years and pretty much my entire life have been some sort of JRPG or RPG of some sort. And even on my PS4 when I got it, it was Final Fantasy 15 and the Kingdom Hearts games that I got first and that I've been playing so long and get really excited about. And I always keep trying so many other games like Monster Hunter World and Battlefront 2, it's Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and all of these, and I love them for a very short time, and then I just can't move forward in them. I get bored for some reason, even if they're really fantastic games. And I was really thinking back and looking back at old games I've played and old copies of old games I have for different systems, and they're all either JRPGs or platformers, really. I might have an occasional adventure game or like survival horror game or something in there, like the Resident Evils, but most of the time it's JRPGs and platformers, and those are really the ones that keep my attention for the longest period of time. And even then, I was looking at how much I'd loved Ni no Kuni 2, that it's just a brilliant game, and I'd never even played the first one. And for a while lately, I've been thinking that I've been out of JRPGs because Square Enix hasn't really been putting out anything worthwhile as a whole, and so I just haven't been playing them. And then when I was looking at all the stuff that I had played, most of my favorite ones weren't even Square Enix JRPGs. They were just JRPGs of different kinds made by different companies that, I like the Final Fantasy games and Square games, but there were just tons of them that weren't. So I kind of had this revelation that maybe I should just play some of the JRPGs that are coming out instead of like paying $60 for Monster Hunter and not being able to return it. That kind of thing that I did when it just didn't work for me for the long term. And it was interesting because I thought back of things like I realized this. What got me to actually realize it was when I was looking up Ni no Kuni, and Level 5, the company who made it, and they made Dark Cloud. Their first game was the PS2 JRPG Dark Cloud, and I still have my copy of Dark Cloud on the PS2. It was one of the first PS2 games I ever had, and I loved it. And I realized, well, of course I loved Ni no Kuni. I didn't realize that they had made Dark Cloud, and that's got me looking back at like Wild Arms and the Golden Sun games and Lunar, Silver Star Story, and Lunar 2, Eternal Blue, Grandia, and Grandia 2, I think on the Dreamcast, maybe? Vandal Hearts, Legend of Legaia, Breath of Fire, Illusion of Gaia, just all of these have nothing to do with Square. And they were all these just games that I have attached myself to. They have an emotional, I don't even know, they just have this sentiment there that's like, oh yeah, these are the games I grew up with. So I'm kind of looking and giving myself a backlog of JRPGs to go through because there's so many I haven't played. And
well, I think it's kind of interesting that this is a revelation for you, because it really felt like that, like texting you back and forth this week, and like you were kind of putting it out on Twitter a little bit too. But I mean, you and I talked about it also. Like, to me, you you aren't like a general video game player. I know like you're always willing to talk to me about whatever I'm playing, which rocks, and it makes this podcast work the way that it works. But in terms of the games that you actually enjoy and that like you are a player of, I always think like platformers, JRPGs, and MMOs, and that's kind of your wheelhouse. And I guess I didn't realize that you hadn't put that together for yourself. Maybe it's more obvious for me because I'm not like in your head,
right?
So I can see it clearer. Like I know for myself, I'm a generalist when it comes to video games. You know, there's a couple genres that I don't usually like sports games, but even there's a couple exceptions. The only game genre that I just don't enjoy is like horror. But even there, I mean, there have been a couple Resident Evils throughout the years that have snuck through. Like in my head, you are a way bigger JRPG fan than I am. I just play through them faster when I get into them.
Okay, that's fair. And I usually get intimidated by them because they're really long. And I'm trying not to do that right now, not really be intimidated by the thousands of hours I have ahead of me in the games that I'm actually thinking about playing soon. And you're right. I mean, those are the games that I've always played. Those have always been the games that I've played since I was a kid. Those are the ones that I like the most. I like some first-person shooters, but I don't like the Call of Duty style first-person shooters, and I tend to get bored more quickly with them. Things like that, and I enjoy them, but I'm never going to be one of those people waiting on God of War, even though that sounds fantastic, and I will pick that up. Like, I know I'm going to play this new God of War when it's on, when there's a PlayStation sale on it. I absolutely know it. But now I'm like, having kind of put that in my head, like I've always been drawn to them, but I didn't actually realize that. I always thought I was like a Final Fantasy fan, that I really just like Square Enix games or Squaresoft games. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, no, dude, it's all of them. You need to stop avoiding these low, like, not no name, but lower recognition RPGs, because you've probably missed out on a whole lot of good ones if Ni no Kuni is this good and you've never touched any of the games and you loved their first game.
Right.
Like, what's wrong with you,
like,
dude?
I'm the Final Fantasy fan. Like, I am a Square Enix fan in a lot of ways. And, like, there are other JRPGs outside of that I enjoy, but I think you're way more broad when it comes to this genre than I am. And again, I'm kind of surprised you didn't put it together. So I want to hear about your mini backlog, because I know you have one now, which is kind of exciting for you. It's exciting for me too, just seeing all these games that you're interested in. I'm like, I want to hear about them. But I need to know, what is it about Ni no Kuni 2 that triggered this for you? Like, how did you figure this out through playing this game? Was there a moment, or like what happened?
I don't know. It's like there hasn't been a game since, really, I'm trying to think of the time that I got it, that Breath of the Wild kind of hit on it, but that's not even a JRPG. It is, but it isn't. It's different.
It's
a
action
Zelda game.
I mean,
it's an action game.
Yep.
But so it kind of hit that, but I was like, oh, I'm going to invest a lot of time in this, and then I was finished. And this one kind of had that same Zelda feeling, but when I started playing Ni no Kuni, it was immediately the going into battles, the way the battle system worked. It felt like a mix between Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy 15, where I didn't really like the combat in 15. It was fine, and it's more advanced a little bit than, say, Birth by Sleep, the Kingdom Hearts game. So it's somewhere in the middle there, and it's fun to play. And then there was this story and this world. That's really what got me. It's like, I'm not fully invested in this world, but there's enough going on that I feel that there's a history there. And as I moved through, it's very obvious that the first Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch on the PS3, was that they did a lot of world building to lead up to this one. And so I'm missing things out on this, and that excited me, that I will be able to play the game before this and learn things that led up to it. And so just the idea of this story and these characters doing this, that this one actually hooked me at the very beginning in the first scene, because the very first scene of the game is going into a cinematic, and there is this dude who is the president of some nation. It looks like it's got an eagle on it, but it's not necessarily the United States. But he's in the back of his car. He's the president, and he is driving across a bridge, and a missile shoots across the bridge in front of him, just parallel with his car, and explodes over the city that he's driving into, where it's basically a nuke. And like, not a nuke, but a big bomb, like, just explodes and decimates things. And he gets knocked out, like, there's all this destruction, and he wakes up in this fantasy world that Ni no Kuni's in. And I just kind of sat there and looked, and I was like, I want to know what's going on. And that doesn't happen terribly often in a JRPG just from the very beginning, but I'm like, that's weird and neat, and I want to know why. And so I just kept playing it, and it's beautiful. That it really is. I've heard that playing Ni no Kuni was like playing a cartoon, and it looks like you're playing a Studio Ghibli cartoon, or however you pronounce it. It looks just like a cartoon. It's ridiculous.
So it's the world. It's not the story or the systems, even though it seems like those helped, but it's like being in a JRPG style world that got you into a headspace for it.
And it's super weird, because this is mega anime world. And those of you who listen who know this, I know Capsule J has told me this before. I think it was Jay who said it's weird that I don't like anime, because I like some really weird anime JRPGs.
Yeah, you do. And you really do.
It's like, I can get into this and I'm cool, but I think it's the interaction with it, because the story overall in this is just kind of, it's standard fare, I guess, but it's got enough humor in it that I think it works. That there's one city where love is forbidden, so in order to meet the queen, they have to stage this wedding on top of a building to get arrested and brought in. And it was just, Jennifer was watching it, and she was like, so this is the game you've been going crazy over. And she happened to be in my office when I was playing it, and I'm like, yeah. And she was like, okay, I'm glad you like this. And I can get so into it. I'm like, yeah, they're doing that. And it was super anime, the entire thing. And it's like, yep, I would hate this on TV, but because I'm playing it, I'm all in.
Cool.
And the story's cool. It's like this dude who wants to unite the world. And this one got me, okay, so I hope you like this game.
I think
you'll like playing.
You gushing over this game, I'm going to try this. It just, I wish I had known how much you loved this game like a month ago, when I had like a whole month in front of me without any new releases.
Right.
Like this week, it's not going to happen with Yakuza 6. And well, hey, Yakuza 6 in a lot of ways is a JRPG, just kind of like with an action game wrapping, but that's a different conversation.
That's true.
But with Yakuza 6 and God of War, like, I'm probably not going to get back to this game for a little bit, but it is on my radar in a way that I totally dismissed it before, because you're just gushing over it.
And I dismissed it too, because I'd heard Austin, when Austin and I used to drive to work together, when we worked together, he ordered Ni no Kuni off Amazon just kind of on a whim after reading some reviews, the first one. And he was telling me how great it was, and the more he described it, the less I thought I was going to like it. And so when I went into 2, I'd avoided it for the same reason, but I guess my head's in a different place now, where just knowing this is a silly world where it's kind of... Did you ever read the Redwall books?
No, I know of them, though, obviously.
Okay.
I think most people do.
It's a world populated by animals. I mean, this one is the same way. This is kind of like a JRPG in Redwall, where the animals, there are mice and rats and cats and dog people and things like that, that one of the characters is named Master Pugnacious, and he runs a casino, and he's a giant pug dog in a robe, and it's this weird world, but it's like reading a Redwall anime. Honestly, it's weird, and the main character is wanting to unite the world and create a kingdom where everyone can be happy. Like, that's his entire goal. That is the story of this, is to make everybody happy. And it's like, okay, it's silly, and there's no way this is going to work, but I'm all in. Let's see what you can do, kid. And it's just... it's fun to play.
Okay, that's fair. I just wanted to hear like why, because I mean this was the week where it all kind of clicked for you. So
Yeah.
obviously you're going to be playing more JRPGs. It seems like from now on.
Yeah.
You said you have a backlog for the first time in years because once you got in the right headspace, you're like, oh, there's all these JRPGs. And I'm looking at your list here. It looks like a mixture of new games and maybe replays or at least revisits of games you might not have given like the time of day before. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm going to play the first Ni no Kuni, and I'll probably play something else between this one and that one so I don't get Ni no Kuni'd out. And, oh, by the way, Ni no Kuni means the second country in Japanese. I looked it up to see because I was like, I had no idea. And, but I'm going to play it, and then this weekend when I go to Disney, Austin is going to let me borrow Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Switch. So I'm really excited to start that because he told me that he really loves the characters in this one, and that's what made me bounce off of the first Xenoblade Chronicles. That whenever I started on the 3DS, I hated the characters, and he told me that they are some of his favorite characters outside of Final Fantasy IX. So that was really high praise from him because he loves 9 more than any person I know. Even more than you and me, he loves 9 more.
Wow.
So for him to compare the characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to 9, it's like, okay, cool, I have to play this game. And so I've got that one coming, and I'm also going to borrow the first Ni no Kuni from him. And then you tweeted me recently, I can't remember if it was today maybe, that Cosmic Star Heroine is finally being released on the Vita next week. Well, which is actually this week.
As you're listening,
when
we recorded
this
ahead.
is being released.
I know we said that on the last episode, but yeah, we're recording a week ahead. So by the time this episode is out, it is out on Vita this week, if not already out by the time you're listening to this.
Yep. So that will probably be the next one I play because I really love the battle system in that one, and I'm only about 2 hours in on Steam because I've been waiting on a handheld that I've wanted to play this one for a long time. It was a Chrono Trigger spiritual successor that was kickstarted, in case y'all don't know, that when Void was telling me about it, man, a year and a half ago, I went and pre-ordered it while we were recording the podcast because I got so excited about it. And when it came out, I really wanted it on handheld like it was supposed to be, and it got delayed. So now I'm just waiting on the handheld. It comes out next week. So I'm going to play it and then probably Ni no Kuni. And I know that you didn't like Disgaea 5. Tell me why you didn't like Disgaea 5 because I can't remember. I know that we were talking about it on a podcast earlier.
All of the Disgaea games have too many systems that don't actually matter. And I know that you can ignore a lot of them safely and play through the game, but I feel when I see systems, I want them to work elegantly together, and I want them to be interesting enough that I can like throw my brain at it and really engage with them.
Okay.
And so this is a game that it's like, it's a mix of what the game is offering and the way that I approach systems, that there's just a clash there because like my brain wants to invest in every system and figure out how they work together and then optimize it. But this is a game where every single item in the game has like 1,000 levels inside of it that you can play through as like one-off battles that will increase the level of the item for every item in the game. Like this game is almost infinitely deep, but in a way that just makes me know that I have to step away from it.
Okay, and you say it's infinitely deep, and everything about it for me is I say this game is dumb, and it's dumb in the best way. I don't remember how many weeks ago it was when we were talking about how much that's a great compliment for me, is that Austin hated Disgaea 5 too. So immediately when both of you guys hated it, I went and downloaded it on the Switch, the demo of it, and loved it. Like I love it. And because it's dumb. The setting is silly. It's ridiculous and absurd and does not take itself seriously. The battles, if you go watch the official trailer that that Nintendo released for the Switch, like you see all of the characters jumping on top of each other, creating a tower, and then the bottom person slapping the enemies with an entire tower of your team of characters as an attack on the strategy RPG. So it's ridiculous and it's dumb. So all of those systems together, I don't have to take seriously. So it just kind of, it's not elegant. The systems aren't elegant, and I like that about it. So for me, this is the kind of strategy RPG that I kind of want right now. And so I've got Disgaea 1 and 2 on PC because they were like $6 on Green Man Gaming last week. And then I've played through the demo of 4 and 5 on the Vita and the Switch. And I will probably be grabbing 4 first because it's cheaper on Vita. It's about $30 and will probably go on sale because it's $60 for 5 on the Switch. So that is straight up a cost thing just to play it, because 4 and 5 are fairly similar. 5 is just a better iteration of it. So I'm excited to play through those, because I remembered when we were talking about it before that I played the first one of these on the PS2 back in the day and I liked it. I just didn't really even think about it anymore after that. I was like, the more I went back and looked this week and played it on Steam or something, that it was like, yeah, I liked this game a lot. And so now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play these. So I'm looking forward to playing through those. And then because I'm traveling and I'm going to have at least 20 hours of driving ahead of me, that we're going to be splitting up, I need some portable games. And since I don't really want to pay for Disgaea 4 or 5, since I just got Ni no Kuni 2, I'm looking at mobile RPGs as well. And I remembered that Kemco, I don't know if those of you out there who do this are huge JRPG fans, but Kemco back in the day made a lot of Super Nintendo RPGs, and a lot of those, on top of other new ones, were ported to mobile devices years ago and released for free and premium, so that you could watch ads like when you opened up a map every once in a while, watch a 30-second ad, or you can pay like the $3 or $4 to do it. And I've been researching those and downloaded a bunch of them on my phone recently, and some of them are actually pretty good. Like, some of them feel like RPG Maker games, but I found some of them here that I like, that they, even though they're from a studio, they feel almost like silly indie RPGs. So I'm going to be playing through probably the Asdivine, Asdivine Hearts series, at least 1 and 2, because they're actually pretty fun. They have decent enough systems on them, and apparently the first one is on the Vita and PS4 on the network, so it's $14 on those, and then it's like $4 on my phone. So I chose that one.
Okay.
I've read reviews, and they're supposed to be some of the best ones. That, and one called Symphony of the Origin, which is also supposed to be one of the better ones, and one called Revenant Dogma, which is also supposed to be pretty fun. I've heard people place it up there on top mobile RPGs for them on a couple of lists. So
yeah, you'll have to let me know.
I'm just going to try these out.
I'm always looking for more mobile JRPGs, so you have to let me. Well, I mean, the next one on your list is too Final Fantasy IV on Android.
Final Fantasy IV. I bought Final Fantasy IV on Android when it came out, and I've never really played it because I've beaten Final Fantasy IV so many times in other ways, but I've never played the 3D remake any more than maybe an hour or so. So depending on how it goes tomorrow as I'm driving down, if I can keep my attention on one of these Kemco games, I may be playing Final Fantasy IV on Android, even though I don't necessarily want to play a Final Fantasy game. I'm actually trying to avoid Final Fantasy and Square games right now, just to see what the kind of stuff I've skimmed over more recently.
Yeah,
and,
but I mean, Chroma Squad you also have on here, which is definitely not Square.
No, and I didn't know there was an Android version of it. So, like, I bought it in a humble bundle for like $1 a while back because you had talked about how great it was. And I've had it installed and just never sat down to play it. It's kind of a Power Rangers parody love letter kind of game. And it's a strategy RPG, right?
Yeah, it's a strategy RPG. It's I think I beat it. If not, I played a lot of it. But yeah, it's basically like Power Rangers. It's not Power Rangers. It's as if they were making like a Super Sentai show, but a lot of it takes place where like you are the characters on a green screen or like on a set. And a lot of the in-between upgrading and stuff is you upgrading the costumes or upgrading the props or upgrading, like your giant mech with like new cardboard pieces. Like, it very much leans into the fact that it is a show and not actually like the Power Rangers as if they were real life, but like Power Rangers or Super Sentai if you were one of the people making the show week to week.
Okay. So that's awesome. And I've had it on Steam forever and just never started it. And I also noticed that it's only $5 on Android as well. I'm sure there's an iOS port as well. So I know that since so many people have liked it, that I'll probably be okay to play it and pay $5. So I also I have installed on my Vita Legend of Dragoon, the old PS1 game. Did you ever play through it?
Oh, yeah, I beat that game. I loved that game at the time. I don't think it has aged well, but I remember loving it on PS1.
Okay, I've never played it. So Austin said it was one of his favorite games on the PS1. It was what got him to like RPGs in general. And now you've said that you loved it back then, so I'm going to try it. It may not hold up. It may be one of those that it's like, okay, I know other people who loved it, and it's an artifact of its time.
I've
installed it.
I think that game is an artifact of its time, but I am curious what you think of it now.
Yeah, so I'll probably start it this weekend if I don't get sucked into something else. I'm also eventually going to try Persona 5 because I want to know how great it is. So many people have talked about it, and it's one that I don't want to pay for. So I'm either going to GameFly it or wait until a really cheap PlayStation sale when they do a big sale and try it then, because I want to know about it, but it's not high on my list, but I really want to try it, especially after you going back for a New Game Plus on it.
Yeah, I mean, that was my game of the year when it came out. I love that game.
I mean, so it may be something for me to like then. And then I bought Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment on PS4 recently. It was back whenever I was doing the Kingdom Hearts games, that it was $5 on PlayStation Network, and it's rated like 4.5 stars. It's supposed to be a good JRPG Sword Art Online game, and Austin actually convinced me to buy it because it was cheap and he was getting it. So I've installed it and haven't turned it on. So I'll try it and see eventually. And then I want to try that Star Ocean game that you couldn't get into, and I can't remember which name it was. Do you remember?
No, they all blend together for Star Ocean. That's the one where you're trapped in a fantasy world for like 10 or 20 hours before it actually turns into a Star Ocean game. That's why I couldn't get into it.
And that's why I want to try it, because I love Star Ocean games. Like, I loved the first Star Ocean, and I think the first Star Ocean was actually a Japanese import that I played as a ROM with an English patch on it, the same way I did so many RPGs when I was a teenager. So I haven't played one in a long time, but I'm kind of wanting to play that one. I want to give it a shot, so I'll probably do the same thing in GameFly it at some point. But so right now, that's the backlog that I've got going. Like, it's huge, and I may bounce off of some of these and not get through them, but I really want to do this because I'm finally like really excited to have something to play like this, because I've been really, like I've talked a little bit about, not wanting to be on my phone a bunch. And even games like this, I guess Florence needs to be on here too, even though it's not a JRPG, but it's something I need to get in and do on my phone and take the time, where playing a game like this gives my brain something to do that's not simply scrolling through Twitter or Facebook or something mindlessly. This gives me something at least minorly mindful to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then you said that you're also interested in Dragon Quest 11, right?
Oh, it looks so cool. Like, have you seen it? Have you looked at it?
No, it's totally on my radar. I'm waiting for like the official English reviews of it, but I mean, it's very highly rated in Japan, but Japan loves Dragon Quest in a way that they don't really like. It's a sensation in Japan. It always has been.
Oh yeah.
They have nostalgia for it in a way that we don't have here, and
yes.
The Dragon Warrior games for them are just like a whole phenomenon on their own. But this is the first one that I think might hook me. I mean, I've played Dragon Quest 1 and 2. I finished both of those on mobile. And then I think I've tried all of the other Dragon Quest games, and none of them have like grabbed me and held on to me. So I'm kind of hoping that 11 breaks that trend, because it looks really interesting.
It really does. And I've read reviews of it. I actually came across this today. I didn't know that 11 was coming out soon, and I just kind of ran across it looking on the internet.
Yeah, it's out in September, I think.
Uh-huh. And so I almost pre-ordered it, but I'm like, no, slow your roll, son. It's going to be okay. And I read some reviews of the Japanese version, and in Japan it was getting good reviews, and even import reviews are good on it, that American players who have played it are very positive toward it. So that gives me hope that maybe it'll be the Dragon Quest that hooks me as well, because I've never played through any of them, but played multiple of them, and I was looking at different ones on mobile as well that I thought about. There's one, I think it's 8 maybe, where you can play it with one hand. They've modified it enough to play as a portrait game with one hand on your phone that I thought looked kind of cool, but I'm like, I don't know, I've never been able to get into one. And then I saw 11, and I was just, that game looks awesome.
Well, I almost pre-ordered it too, but then, it's a ways away. I don't usually pre-order that far ahead, but I was thinking about it, and then they announced the release date, and it's coming out within a week of, and I'm totally blanking right now, one of the biggest releases of the year in September. It's coming out right before or right after. They're basically setting this game out to die because of where they put it on the release schedule. So
really,
instead of it, they really want it to be a phenomenon in the West. And if they actually release it on the date they have for right now, I don't think it's going to be, just because of the release calendar, not because of the quality of the game. So, I mean, for me, when I saw the other games coming out around it, I was like, oh, I can wait on Dragon Quest 11. I'll just wait. I'll bide my time. I'll probably pick it up later after, the crazy fall releases are done coming out. I'll swing back around to Dragon Quest.
Well, looking at the list while you said that, I don't know if it's going to not be able to, because it's Spider-Man that comes out 3 days later.
That was the one.
And that one's going to be huge. I mean, people are going to go crazy. I'm going to go crazy over it. I mean, that's the actual reason I chose to get a PS4 was because of the Spider-Man game at E3.
Yeah, they are sending it out to compete against Spider-Man in the West. I don't think that's going to go well for them at all.
But they do have different target audiences as well, that not everyone who is a Spider-Man fan is going to be a Dragon Quest fan, and vice versa. So maybe it will do it, especially with there being a PC version of 11 coming out too.
It's not really about the target audience so much as the mind share at that time of year. You want the industry talking about your game, right? And if you put out a brand new Dragon Quest game that is made with the West in mind, if you put that out some time of the year when not a lot else is coming out, the gaming industry, podcast, news sites, Twitter, people will talk about that. If you put it out in September, right when Spider-Man's coming out, they only can write so many articles, do so many videos, do so many podcasts in a week. You are not going to get the same mind share and the same word of mouth that you would if you released it at a different time of year. So that's my concern. And
I also actually forgot, just kind of scrolling on this list as we're talking about that with the different kinds, what's competing with one another and going to be able to really get the attention, that Octopath Traveler comes out in July, and there's not a whole lot that it's competing with. I mean, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker on Switch is there as a remake, but again, I think the Octopath Traveler may get a lot of attention there as a JRPG, and I've liked the demo of it so far.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'm definitely going to pick up that game, and then I'm still love a good JRPG. I think I'm just more picky with them than you, which is fine. Like I said, you really are truly more a fan of the genre than I am. Even though I really like JRPGs, I'm just such a generalist in comparison. But, I'm starting to think about the 4-Job Fiesta, because that should be in June, if I'm remembering correct. I think it's in June. I'm contemplating a new Chrono Trigger playthrough. I think I might have a save file somewhere, so I could do a New Game Plus, which I've never done.
Do it.
It's a good game.
Do it. It is. It's one of my favorites, and it's. I actually started Chrono Cross because of how much I loved it when I played through it the last time we did a JRPG episode, and Chrono Cross didn't hold up nearly as well as I'd hoped it would. But my goodness, Chrono Trigger is still a brilliant game.
Yeah, it's amazing. It holds up in a way that not a lot of other games from the era do. And then Persona 5, I know I keep talking about the New Game Plus. I think it's going to be a while now. It's still there. It's like my evergreen. Next time I run out of stuff to play, I'm going to do a New Game Plus run of Persona 5. I just need to find the time. And then, like I said, Yakuza 6 is kind of a JRPG that just, in an action game wrapping, and I've probably played it by the time you're listening to this, because we're recording a week ahead. And then the other main game for the year that I'm excited for, that I guess you could call it a JRPG, is Fire Emblem for the Switch, which is more of a strategy RPG, but it kind of falls into that JRPG realm, don't you think?
Now, when does that come out? Because, I include it in my mind. I always consider JRPGs and SRPGs as the kind of the same thing because of the kind of overlap in terms of the story and equipment building and team building kind of stuff. Just, it's a different battle system in my mind.
It doesn't have a release date outside of 2018, so we'll probably find out at E3 or right around E3, which is coming up soon too. Ooh, that'll be fun to talk about. I always like talking E3.
Oh, true. I love that feeling, like where you're like, oh, now we can do our E3 episode. It's like that sound. That's awesome.
It's crazy to me that like our next episode is going to be Infinity War also, which is just crazy. It's been 10 years in the making. But anyway, any final thoughts on JRPGs before we wrap up the main topic?
It's kind of crazy to me that I didn't realize this about myself. I try to be really aware of myself. I try to be fairly reflective, and then I just didn't realize. I just assumed everybody cared about all of them. That it wasn't something that I really had even considered. Like, this was just what I played growing up and what I did now. And when you said, it's like, yeah, of course you play JRPGs a lot. You like all of them. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I kind of do. It's like, I know so much about things of other ones. And I actually felt kind of bad as I went through some of these. Like, I went through Vita and Android, like I said, looking for the best games that I've missed. And I've missed so many of them over like the last 5 years that have come out, just that I didn't even realize were there because I'd stopped looking at non-AAA Square Enix style JRPGs. And now I am very happy that I'm probably going to go back in and get some really awesome games that I'm going to play.
Good. Well, I'm glad you finally realized it. That's good. You should listen to other stuff on the network if you aren't already. We have Geektitude with Joe and Ray these days, Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea, The Comic Box. I have no idea what's on anybody's show this week because we're recording a week ahead, but you should listen to them because I will. Weekly Geekery for this week. Again, we split our Weekly Geekery between last week and this week, so we don't have a whole lot because we're recording early, but you tied into this JRPG episode because you've been downloading emulator, right?
Yeah, actually, there is an emulator on Android called PPSSPP, and it's a PSP emulator. And it's I've been playing some games I've been wanting to try, and I just wanted to reiterate what you said, that Persona 3 Portable is one of the worst games I've ever played. That I stopped so quickly in it, that it had so much potential, and then I realized that I was, like you said, going through menus and playing a menu game with a cursor on the screen and clicking on things. But it's not a point-and-click adventure. It's terrible. But then you get into battles that are JRPG battles later, and I'm like, I can't play this, but it's terrible. But I'm excited because I found that, because I'm going to get to do stuff like Crisis Core and some other games like that I never had a chance to before, just to give a shot that I actually don't know if I'm going to like. So emulators on Android are actually really good these days. I played through Final Fantasy VI on one years ago and really, really liked them. So I started looking again, and I mean, Ni no Kuni has taken up just about all of my spare time this week. I'm still watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I'm still loving that. And as you guys are listening to this, I've either if you guys are listening to this, I've been home for a day from my races. So yeah, cheer me on. That way, yes. Congratulate me. But I'm prepping for the races and watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend a little bit and playing Ni no Kuni too.
Yes, congratulations to future past you. This week, I played A Way Out with my brother, and it is... Do you know this game? Have you seen it at all?
No.
Okay.
I haven't even seen this one.
It's a 2-player only game, and it's a simultaneous story with split-screen co-op. So...
Oh, cool.
The entire game, you're both on screen, outside of a couple cutscenes, but those last for... I don't know, maybe 5 minutes total out of a 6-hour game. The rest of it, you are both on screen at all times, and... Sometimes it'll weight the story a little bit one way or another. So you'll take up more of the screen than the other person. But it is 2 people playing through a story together. That's truly a co-op story. And I love the mechanics of this game. And it's they made a ton of cool like mini sections of different gameplay, like almost different genres in a way. Even though you're always controlling the same character, there's like a stealth game in here. There's a fighting game in here. There's a side scroller. There's driving. There's a shooter. There's a bunch of others that they just made like tons of mini games that are totally optional. And it's, I don't know. I really like the idea here, but some of the execution on the story side is lacking. So it's a game that like, I'm so glad I played through it because I see the potential, and like the gameplay was so worth playing through the game for. But the story itself is like a prison escape, and it was extremely obvious to me where the story was going to end up. Like, I think an hour or two in, I said something to my brother like, hey, so X is going to happen at the end of the game, right? And he's like, did you look at spoilers? I was like, no, it's just obvious. He goes, yeah, okay. Because he had played through it already with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I was completely right, 100%. So if you don't mind like a prison escape and then like a kind of crime thriller story set in, I want to say it's like the 60s or 70s, somewhere in that range, it's good enough. But mostly, if you're looking for a very interesting co-op experience, this is your game. Because you can only play it with 2 players. You can play it online. You can play it in person. You don't have to play it in person, though. So he bought the game, and if somebody else owns the game and they invite you to it, you can download a free trial that lets you play the whole game with them for free.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. So I'm glad that was an option, because I probably wouldn't have spent money on it, but he already owned it, so he just had to invite me, and then I downloaded it. So
that is a fantastic business model for a multiplayer game.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like a modern version of couch co-op, right? One person buys the game, but then you can play with any of your friends, no matter where they are on the internet. And it's one of those, it truly is like a couch co-op experience, even though we were in different houses playing, because it's split screen. Like, even when you're playing online, it doesn't just give you your view. It gives you the split screen view. You guys are watching the exact same screen all the time, no matter what.
That's okay. When I was thinking about online, I was sitting here thinking about how it would be a different experience, a completely different experience than if somebody were there with you on the split screen. But if that's just the UI, it's not quite as different.
No,
I mean, it's still different than having someone beside you, but...
This is the closest I've ever had to couch co-op without actually having couch co-op.
That is a really, really neat idea for a game. I'm kind of blown away. That just sounds so interesting that just the two players at one time, that you have to play the game like that. That I wish there were more games like that. I think there are a couple more that I can't remember the names of, but like I need to play some of these.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good experience. I think it's out on about PS4 and a couple other places. We played it on Origin, so it's on PC for sure. But I want to say it's on PS4 and probably Xbox One also. I don't know. You can look it up. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, it was cool, and I had to talk about it. Next week, we should be back with Infinity War, I believe, as long as nothing goes wrong and you make it back from your races okay. And then the week after that, it will have been a couple weeks since we recorded. So we're just going to talk about your races and then just catch up on Geekery, I think, because we'll have a lot to talk about by then.
That's true.
Yep.
We always do after we do a double recording.
We do. It's kind of nice to not feel like we have to have a main topic, and maybe the main topic just becomes your running, but we'll just catch up on whatever, because I have a bunch of games that are coming out this week. I haven't played them yet, but I'll have like 2 weeks of them under my belt, and then you'll have 3 runs and a trip to Disney. We'll have plenty to talk about when you get back.
Yep, and the 20 hours of driving back and forth where I'm probably going to be playing tons of games.
That too. But yes, if you guys are listening to this, you can give Beej a shout out on whatever social media, because he will probably have just wrapped up races a couple days ago.
Yep.
I hope they go well, past future you. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have longer discussion threads on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
We're on Slack too, so if you want to talk to us in real time, go to slack.geek2geekcast.com for your invite. And remember, folks, we're also part of a podcast network. We may not know what they're doing this week, but you can head over to geek2geekcast.com and find out for yourself.
Rob is probably doing another Infinity War prep episode. Anyway, I blog at agreemushroom.com. You can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's. And I'm now online at runningshoes.tv.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Bye, geeks.
Comics. Hey everyone, Rob here, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, inviting you to join me and my rotating cast of co-hosts each week on The Comic Box, where we tell you everything you need to know to become a world-class comic book geek. So join us for The Comic Box each week right here on the Geek to Geek Podcast Network.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea, and we are the hosts of Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. We are two best friends who love pop culture and talking about pretty much whatever we want. Katie!
Yes?
Stop thinking about Zac Efron and tell our future listeners what some of our latest episodes have been about.
Well, we've talked about Zac Efron.
No, get it together, Katie.
Fine. We've talked about fan fiction, classical literature adaptations, favorite TV couples, and so much more. So grab your cup of tea or whatever your drink of choice is and download our podcast today.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.